Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. As always, I am Bryson Carver. It is great to be with y'all on this first Monday of the NFL season. Those games yesterday were nuts. The 1 o'clock window was full of some crazy games. We had a tie in there. We had 2 overtime games. We had some walk-off field goals baked in there. We had some missed walk-off field goals in there as well. We had some pretty good games in the afternoon slot. The Sunday night game was, of course, a dud. I'll talk about that in just a second. But also, Aaron Rodgers, rough day for him and the Packers offense as they only score 7 in their 16-point loss to the Minnesota Vikings. I'll tell you why it is a precursor for both Minnesota and for Green Bay. I'll also discuss Joe Burrow and the Bengals' rough offensive performance, especially through the first 3 quarters. They made that rally, obviously, in the fourth, but came up short in overtime. I'll discuss that, as well as my prediction for tonight's game between the Seattle Seahawks and the Denver Broncos and Russell Wilson's return to Seattle for this Monday Night Football matchup, first Monday night game of the year. And also I'll discuss Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, man. Reed and Mahomes, man, they don't miss a beat. They're unbelievable. But first, I got to start with last night. The Dallas Cowboys fell by a final score of 19-3 to Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in what was one of the more hyped matchups of the season. But it ended up being, kind of an ugly performance, ugly eyesore of a performance by both sides, to be completely honest with you. But the bigger story coming out of this, the long-term story, is Dak Prescott. Of course, we all know late in the game, he has his hand hit by Shaq Barrett on a little out pass. Ends up being, a serious thumb injury. So Dak Prescott goes to the sideline. Apparently, there were some people on the sideline who said that Dak said he said his hand was broken, so they were checking it. You see the doctor on the sideline with the Cowboys hat. He's checking on it, and he walks off to the locker room. And according to numerous sources, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys being one of them, Dak Prescott will not play for 6 to 8 weeks. He just had surgery today. No updates as of now. We assume and certainly hope that the surgery went successfully. But last night, it was really all of my frustrations that I've always had with the Dallas Cowboys, certainly in the last couple of years, all bottled up into 3.5 hours of misery. Now, as many of you out there know, I was a Cowboys fan. Now I've got a weird love-hate relationship. It's more on rocky terms these days. But I decided, look, these days, the only man you can rely on at this point, obviously Micah Parsons has come in. He's the best player on the team. But the only man you can rely on consistently to be the only steady force in that organization is Rayne Dakota Prescott. And I hear it feels like half of Cowboys Nation coming out of that game, the number one scapegoat was Dak himself. Only 134 yards passing. Not a very good completion percentage. He had that interception to Winfield of the second quarter. No touchdowns, not only for Dak, but for the whole Cowboys offense. They got that Brett Maher field goal, 7 minutes in, and that was all she wrote for the Dallas Cowboys in terms of scoring. But I'm hearing a lot of people blame Dak for the loss. Now, I'm not here to say that Dak played great. He did not, by any stretch of the imagination. But I don't know. Call me crazy. But when you have an offensive line who cannot protect for more than a second and a half on a good play, when your best receiver, quote unquote, gets open pretty consistently, but apparently hasn't been vaccinated. No, wait, no, he's been vaccinated against COVID. Don't worry, he's been vaccinated against COVID. I'm saying he hasn't been vaccinated against his case of the drops. Because CeeDee Lamb drops footballs like nobody's business. And so your only guy who can consistently separate can't catch. Your other guys can catch. They just can't separate. Noah Brown had a decent night, but Dalton Schultz was more of just a security blanket for the Cowboys at the tight end spot. You had guys like that Houston kid, the guy whose name, what's his name? Semi. Looking down the line of Cowboys receivers, is it Dennis Houston was the kid's name? He's working with undrafted guys. He's working with, Noah Brown was a 7th round pick in 2016. He's working with a pretty thin cupboard here. Not to mention, one of the few things that actually went right for the Cowboys was running the football. Ezekiel Elliott looked pretty good last night. Had fresh legs, right? We saw the work that he put into his body in the offseason. He looked good. 5 yards a carry? You'll take that any day of the week, especially after the way he ended last season. That's a big bounce back. And he had 10 carries. So the only offensive formula that's working for you, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you completely abandon it. Mike McCarthy, Kellen Moore more specifically, completely abandoned it. Not to mention, another game, shocker, the Dallas Cowboys committed double-digit penalties. What? You mean after 14 penalties in the playoff loss to San Francisco and 17 penalties in the first preseason loss to Denver, the Cowboys committed double-digit penalties? I'm surprised it wasn't more, to be completely honest with you. Terrence Steele by himself committed 4. But it's Dak's fault. That's right. When the Cowboys had an opportunity to go get Von Miller in free agency, but they didn't want to pay him, Buffalo did. Yeah, that's paying off pretty well. He had 2.5 sacks opening night. Oh, yeah, the Dallas Cowboys, with a thin receiving group, had an opportunity, just like the rest of the league, to go get Julio Jones. They did not. The team the Cowboys played last night did get Julio Jones. Julio looked pretty good last night now, didn't he? But it's Dak's fault. Don't forget that. So this is why I have said, for 2 years on this show. I definitely said it 2 years ago when Dak was on that franchise tag and he was going to be a free agent in 2021. I said, Dak, get out of Dallas as soon as you can. As soon as you can. Whether it be via free agency or whether it be via the Russell Wilson route. Play the good guy for a few years. Organization isn't helping you whatsoever, and bail. And even the way the injury news broke, shows you why Dak needs to get out of Dallas. Who broke the news that Dak Prescott had broken his thumb? Wasn't a Cowboys reporter. It wasn't, Ed Werder or Jane Slater or Todd Archer. No, wasn't them. It was not the Cowboys team doctor. It was not a general manager. Oh, I'm sorry, the owner's the general manager. And it was not Mike McCarthy. It wasn't even Dak Prescott himself. It was Jerry Jones, the only owner in the NFL who holds press conferences after games. He is an egomaniac. He is a bad general manager. Okay. These last few drafts the Cowboys have had where they picked up some pretty good players like Micah Parsons, we know, superstar. He's phenomenal, right? Trayvon Diggs, I thought played pretty well last night, right? Good pick. Okay. Some of these drafts, that's Will McClay. That is not Jerry Jones. That is Will McClay in the front office doing that. This has always been my issue. And when the Todd Archer report came out a few weeks ago, I talked about it on this very show. When the Todd Archer report came out a few weeks ago saying that the feeling within the Dallas Cowboys organization, particularly in the front office, was to say, let's see if Dak can carry us. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. All of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, save for one, outside of one, Aaron Rodgers, the organization goes out of their way to surround their star quarterback, their franchise quarterback, with as much talent as possible. The team Dallas played last night, Tampa Bay, well, they've done it and then some. The Rams have done it. The Chargers have done it. The Raiders have done it. The Broncos have done it. The Chiefs have done it. The Bills have done it. The Niners are trying to with Trey Lance. The Dolphins are trying to with Jimmy Garoppolo. The Eagles did with Jalen Hurts. Even the teams with unproven quarterbacks are going out of their way. And you say, well, Dak's making $40 million a year. So is Matthew Stafford and Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Aaron Rodgers is making $50 million. So, no, the contract is not an issue. As a matter of fact, the Cowboys actually they're in the top 10 in cap space in the NFL. They got plenty of money to spend on players, but they don't. You know why that is? Because Jerry always talks about, we love to build through the draft. Right? We want to build through the draft, build a Super Bowl contender. No. You know why that is? Because if the player succeeds, it's once again Jerry saying, hey, that was me. We didn't have to go on free agency to go get a proven player, a player everybody already knew was good. No, it's got to be my guy. My guy's got to be the one that succeeds. The coach that I can control. Chan Gailey, Wade Phillips, Jason Garrett, Mike McCarthy. This all stems from the top. And so Dak Prescott getting hurt could be a little bit of a blessing in disguise for two reasons. One, so he doesn't have to get hit basically every play. And two, all right, see what the Cowboys' offense looks like without Dak, because they were bad with Dak. As my guys from the Cowboys Camp Fan podcast, shout out to those guys. They do a phenomenal job. As they pointed out, as Ant pointed out last night, what about Dak Prescott was the same quarterback last year who set the Cowboys record for most passing touchdowns in the season with 37. He threw for well over 4,000 yards. He had a passer rating over 100. He led the Cowboys to a division title. That's the same Dak from last year to this year. What has changed? They start taking more and more pieces away from him. So they take Amari Cooper away from him. They take Cedric Wilson away from him. They take Lyle Collins away from him. They say, hey, Dak, with a first-round pick from 2020 who has not even come close to panning out to what we thought he would be, CeeDee Lamb's a 2. He's not even the same galaxy as Justin Jefferson, who, by the way, was taken right after him. Another draft mistake by the Cowboys. With Dalton Schultz, who's a fourth-round pick from a few years ago. With Dennis Houston and Noah Brown and Simi Fehoko, go out there and beat the greatest quarterback of all time. Come on now. It's so ironic that I compare Dak Prescott coming out of the 2016 draft. I said he's a bigger Russell Wilson. Good arm, but is not going to blow you away with his arm. Accurate, moves around well, can run, but he's not Lamar Jackson. He's not going to run if he doesn't hit his first or second read. And incredible leadership intangibles. Very coachable. Like, saw a lot of parallels between Dak and Wilson. Also like Wilson. Remember Russell those last 3-4 years in Seattle? Anytime the Seahawks would lose, everybody blamed Russell. They didn't blame Pete Carroll's defense, which got worse and worse as the years passed on. They didn't blame their lack of running game or lack of weapons. It was Russell's fault. And Russell's last year in Seattle, he suffered the exact same injury that Dak suffered. The parallels are there. So I say to you, Dak, however many games you miss, if you had asked me my guess, I'd say 6. Dak is a quick healer. I think it'll be 6. He'll be back before the 8-week mark. I believe that's just speculation. Cowboys will probably win if they get very, very lucky. One of those. They're not beating the Bengals next week. Okay, that's the Bengals. I checked the line. The Bengals are already 7-point favorites on the road in Dallas. Cincinnati, after that heartbreaking loss yesterday against Pittsburgh, is going to mop the floor with the Cowboys. Giants, I don't know. The way Saquon Barkley looked, I don't know. That's not a gimme. Okay, you got Washington. Washington looked all right. They're dang sure ain't beating the Rams at SoFi Stadium. They're dang sure not beating the Eagles on the road in Sunday Night Football. I don't know. You think they're going to beat Detroit? Detroit just scored 35 points yesterday. You think they're going to beat the Bears? Bears just beat the Niners in a terrible rainstorm. I don't know. I mean, it's a coin flip, some of those games. Some of those games, they'll get smoked in. And even something else. I said a few weeks ago when Tyron Smith went down with that hamstring injury. And the Cowboys knew Tyron Smith was injury prone as he's gotten older and older, right? He's missed more and more games, and they still did not have a backup plan for him. And they're paying the price for it. The Cowboys knew most important player on a football team is obviously the quarterback. And as I've always said, the second most important player on the team is the backup quarterback. Ask the Philadelphia Eagles a few years ago how important backup quarterbacks are, okay? They can win you a Super Bowl if they're put in the right situation. And with Dak going down, Dallas's backup plan is Cooper Rush, who has started one game in the NFL. That's their backup plan, Cooper Rush. Undrafted, in 2017 out of Central Michigan. That's their backup plan. He has started, may I repeat, one game. So this is 2020 all over again. Dak goes down, and the Cowboys, most specifically the offense, will sputter. You can blame Dak all you want, but did you see Aaron Rodgers yesterday? About to talk about him just a second. See how Aaron Rodgers looked behind a crappy offensive line and some pretty bad receivers? Didn't look so good. As a matter of fact, their QBRs, Dak's and Aaron's, were identical. Aaron had a 16, Dak had a 15. Aaron, like Dak, threw for under 200 yards. Aaron, like Dak, threw no touchdowns and one interception. It is why you say, oh, you're being a hypocrite. No, I'm not. A quarterback I am not a fan of. You guys, I've said this for a year and a half. Mac Jones ain't that dude. But I said a few weeks ago, when the reports were coming out about the disastrous Patriots offense during training camp, I said, you will not hear me be hard on Mac Jones this season because I can't. How am I supposed to be hard on a guy when he has no offensive line, probably the worst receiving core in football in New England? He's got a defensive coordinator as his offensive coordinator, and he's got a 70-plus-year-old head coach who refuses to evolve and is an average head coach without Tom Brady. I can't be hard on Mac Jones. I can't do it. I mean, yesterday's loss against Miami was predictable. Tua has all kinds of weapons. Mac has not. I can't be hard on Mac. And I don't even like Mac. Okay? I'm not an Aaron fan. I think he's phenomenal as a talent. I can't bash him. I mean, his best receiver is Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs and Randall Cobb. Are you kidding me? His offensive line is awful. I can't be hard on Aaron Rodgers, but I'm supposed to be hard on Dak. Okay. I'm going to say it again before I get to the comments. Dak Prescott, if you are listening, the rare event that you are listening or watching, get out of Dallas as soon as you possibly can. Otherwise, it'll be Tony Romo all over again. A potential Hall of Famer who had his career wasted by Jerry Jones. To the comments now. My man, Philip Chenault. I was talking to him all throughout last night, man. He's just as frustrated as I am. He said, I hope Dak leaves. Jerry Jones is a team killer, putting zero people with offensive capabilities to help Dak. I mean, that's it right there. Again, the offense got worse, but we're expecting Dak to drag it. Here's the thing. Dak is not on the level of Mahomes or Burrow or Allen, Rodgers, Wilson. He's not on the level of those guys. But outside, take Rodgers out of this. None of those guys are being asked to drag their team. None of those guys are being asked, hey, your team is going to commit double-digit penalties basically just about every game. Okay? Your head coach doesn't really have a role because he doesn't call plays for the offense or the defense. The guy who does call plays abandons what works, which last night was the running game. We're going to strip two of your top three receivers from you. One of your receivers, probably your best receiver at this point, Michael Gallup, is hurt. Your offensive line got worse because the lost guys in free agency and other guys went down due to injury. Go beat Tom Brady. Come on now. We're being intellectually dishonest if we're saying that Dak Prescott has been given what these other great quarterbacks have been given. Am I saying he's on the level of those? He's not. He's not on the level of those guys. But he's a top 10 guy. He's proven it time and time again, doing more with less. It is Tony Romo all over again. If Dak stays in Dallas, the good news for Dak, it could be Russell Wilson if he leaves. So, I mean, to me, I don't even know how you can. I mean, the fact that, I'm checking Twitter. I'm like, they really think Dak's the issue. And Jerry Jones, for the record, we know has never, ever been sold on Dak Prescott. I could give you multiple examples why. 2016. Remember Dak's rookie year? Dak and Zeke, probably the best rookie duo of all time. They're winning all those games because Romo gets hurt in the preseason. Dak fills in, loses his first start to the New York Giants, goes on to win however many it was, like 11 straight games. And once the winning streak got to like 7, that's when Romo got healthy. His back healed. Tony Romo's ready to go. And everybody in that Cowboys organization, Jason Garrett, Dak's teammates, heck, I even remember Stephen Jones endorsing Dak. Stephen Jones. Everybody's like, yeah, Dak's the guy. Listen, with all due respect to Romo, all-time great Cowboy, this dude got us on a roll. Don't mess up that chemistry. And Jerry Jones, the first game Dak lost after that winning streak, said we need to seriously consider starting Tony Romo at quarterback. For 2 years, while all these other quarterbacks getting paid, Jerry refuses to pay Dak. And when he finally does, he looks right into that man's eyes at the press conference and says, I overpaid you. He's never been sold on Dak Prescott, ever. If he's sold on Dak Prescott, why wouldn't he have put the weapons around him that other organizations are putting around their star quarterbacks? It's ridiculous. Quickly, though, on Tampa, I hate to completely shortchange them because they did win the game after all. Leonard Fournette's lost that training camp weight, clearly. Leonard Fournette looks good. What do you have, 120? Yeah, 127 yards rushing, average 6 a carry. I mean, that was really how Tampa Bay won the game. Defense and running game. It's kind of an old school type of field for Tampa Bay. Tom Brady played all right, a little over 200 yards, threw that touchdown to Mike Evans. It was a beautiful fade against Trayvon Diggs. Evans made a phenomenal catch. Julio Jones played well. Chris Godwin looks like he's going to be out a few weeks. When I heard Chris Godwin was going to come back for Tampa, I'm like, God, I think he's rushing it. Like, take the week off, and he pulls his hamstring. So hopefully Chris Godwin heals quickly. But I can't. A lot of people are impressed by Tampa. If you're impressed by Tampa's defense, okay. If you're impressed by Leonard Fournette, if you're impressed, can I tell you what I took away? For a beat-up offensive line, Tampa Bay's offensive line actually looked pretty good, certainly in the running game. Now, the passing game, Tom Brady got hit a few times. Micah Parsons got to him. He threw that interception in the fourth quarter to Donovan Wilson. So there's some things that can clean up, but they're going into the Lions' Den next week at the Superdome in New Orleans. And we know Tom Brady is, as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, he is 0-4 in the regular season against the New Orleans Saints. And in all 4 of those games, he was awful. So we'll see what happens. Moving on now to another quarterback who has just about nothing to work with, and that's Aaron Rodgers. Now, you guys know, as a leader, heck, as a guy, I'm not a fan of Aaron Rodgers in the slightest. But as a quarterback, he's one of the greatest talents we've ever seen. He is, without question, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the 10 greatest players who's ever played the position. I've always said the issue with Aaron is his lack of intangibles, I think, has cost him an opportunity to win some Super Bowls. But yesterday in Minnesota, obviously, everybody knows Davante Adams is gone. I think Aaron played part in kind of scaring Davante Adams off from Green Bay to Vegas to play with Derek Carr. But against the Minnesota Vikings, Aaron Rodgers, okay completion percentage, under 200 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, had a QBR of 16. His QBR is 0 to 100. He had a QBR of 16. This was, I think, about as predictable a game as you could possibly have. Minnesota with a new coach, Kevin O'Connell, who I believe is going to be the coach of the year this year. Kirk Cousins gets an offensive head coach who runs the West Coast offense. And what do we know about the West Coast? Those who run it right run the football. Dalvin Cook was good. That Madison kid, man, he is physical. That dude loves contact, right? Madison was good. And the Jet man went off. Justin Jefferson. Yesterday against the Green Bay Packers, 9 catches for $184 and 2 touchdowns. I mean, it was just, and he's going against one of the best corners in football, Jair Alexander, for the Packers. Just torched him. Okay, Justin Jefferson's one of the 5 best receivers in football. I've been saying that since the middle of last year. He is special. The fact that Joe Burrow had him and Jamar Chase in college ain't even fair. Okay, this guy's fantastic. Adam Thielen was a little quiet, but again, it was the Justin Jefferson show. That game last night was predictable. Aaron Rodgers with a beat-up offensive line, when his best receivers are Sammy Watkins, okay, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, and Randall Cobb. There's only so much you can do with that. Now, here's my criticism of Aaron Rodgers, and this is what I've always got on him about. We all saw first play of the game for the Packers. Aaron drops back, throws a beautiful deep ball. He's got Christian Watson wide open down the field, and he drops what would have been a 75-yard touchdown. And they pan to Aaron. The Fox cameras pan to Aaron. just blowing. Aaron even said after the game, my patience is running thin. That is my issue. Do I blame Aaron for being a little, maybe even a little ticked off at Christian Watson, even him being a rookie? Sure. Yeah, I mean, listen, we're not going to get a whole lot of wide open looks. You darn sure don't get those multiple of those looks in a game against a great defense, which Minnesota is. You got to hit those. You got to convert those against a team that is better than you. I get Aaron for being frustrated, but making it public, just dropping his head, exhale, dissing his receivers to the media after the game. My patience is running thin. That has been my issue with Aaron Rodgers. I will defend him all day, every day, at least in the regular season. The postseason, he's consistently come up short. But in the regular season, with Matt LaFleur as your head coach, with a bad offensive line, with 2 rookies at wide receiver, with an old Randall Cobb at wide receiver. I mean, Robert Tonyan. I mean, what are we talking about here, guys? My issue is throws the ball to a guy wide open, doesn't score. You see the body language. He did not throw to Christian Watson until the 4th quarter. This is a trend with Aaron. In the playoff loss to San Francisco, first quarter, 7-0 Packers. Things are looking good. They're driving again. He throws a pass to Mercedes Lewis. Good dude, veteran, tight end, been around the league for a while. Mercedes Lewis in, 15, 20-degree weather. I mean, the football feels like a rock. Carries the ball and fumbles. Aaron stopped throwing him the ball. I mean, we saw in that playoff game, he threw to 2 guys, Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones. Well, the problem is Aaron Jones is a running back. There's only so many passes you can throw him and get big plays out of it. You can hit him on the check downs, but you can't just run him on a wheel route every play. And obviously, Devontae Adams is no longer a Packer. As a matter of fact, Devontae Adams yesterday had more receiving yards by himself than any of the Packers receivers had yesterday. I think Devontae had like about 140-something yards. Packers had about 120. So clearly the Green Bay is missing a guy who very well might be the best receiver in football. But this is a 9-win football team. Their defense is excellent. They've got plenty of playmakers. They've got Jair Alexander. They've got Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary. They've got playmakers on that side of the ball. That can only take you so far. They've got a good running game. I thought A.J. Dillon was good last night. Aaron Jones had his moments. You do still have Aaron Rodgers. But in a team in Minnesota, obviously Minnesota does not have the edge at quarterback. Like Kirk Cousins, he's not Aaron Rodgers. But they've got the edge in the running game, in the offensive line, certainly in the skill position players, wide receiver, tight end. Irv Smith is a good player. And defensively, I think they're just a little better than Green Bay. I think their pass rush is better. And I certainly, even after one game, think they have the advantage at head coach with Kevin O'Connell over Matt LaFleur. And keep in mind, McVay's assistants usually pan out. Okay? I mean, even in this short amount of time. Zach Taylor, coach of the Bengals, got to a Super Bowl. Okay, Brandon Staley, who I'm not that high on, but, he took this Chargers team from, 7 wins to 9 wins, right? There's a steady improvement. And then Kevin O'Connell, I believe, with this stacked roster in Minnesota, this is a 12-win team. They're going to win the AFC North, and he's going to win Coach of the Year. And I think Minnesota's going to win a playoff game. That's what I think is going to happen. They could get to the NFC Championship game. I'm not ruling it out, especially with how the Niners have looked. It's only week 1, obviously. Don't want to, have overreaction Monday. But to me, that feels like what these teams are going to be like this season. Green Bay has their moments defensively. They can run the football. Aaron will make the occasional great throw. But as simply as I can possibly put it, they don't have as many good players as the Minnesota Vikings do. That's what it comes down to. And that's why I picked the Vikings before the season to win the NFC North. Something else, too, that I think is interesting. Kirk Cousins' record against Aaron Rodgers, 5-3-1. He's got a winning record against Aaron Rodgers. I've always said, Kirk Cousins, every time he plays the Packers, whatever it is, he always plays well. I mean, Minnesota, Green Bay almost always splits. Now, it's not Panic City for Green Bay. They play the Bears next week. Listen, I know the Bears had a good win over the Niners. Aaron Rodgers told y'all last year he owns the Chicago Bears, and he does. Aaron will ball out. Packers should, they're favored -10 at home. They'll win that game next Sunday night. I think they're going to get clobbered by Tampa Bay in week 3. They'll beat the Patriots in week 4. Giants, we'll see. I think that game's going to be played in London. Then they got the Jets. So the Packers' early season schedule is not bad. Okay, the Commanders, that's dicey. They're not beating Buffalo. Detroit, they always come up short against Detroit for whatever reason in Detroit. Cowboys, depends on if Dak is back and healthy. That's kind of a toss-up because both teams kind of have the same problem. Titans, I'm not high on Tennessee this year. At Philadelphia, I do not think they will win that game. They got the Bears again. They're not beating the Rams. I'm not sure they'll beat the Dolphins. And then they got the Vikings again and the Lions. So there's a lot of go either way games for the Green Bay Packers. But this feels like a 9-win football team, and that performance what we saw from Minnesota feels like a 12-win football team. So we'll see what happens over the next few weeks. Who does Minnesota have next? Minnesota goes to Philly next week. Next Monday night, they'll go to Philadelphia to play the Eagles. That's a good one. What's the line on that game? Okay, they got Eagles -1.5 at home. So the Vegas kind of likes Minnesota right now. I'm leaning Minnesota, but it all depends on injuries over the next few days. I do know the Eagles lost my man out of Tennessee, Derek Barnett, who is out for the year with an ACL tear. So hate that for him. Hopefully he heals up soon. That is a stacked Eagles defensive line, so they could have really used him. But we'll see what happens with Philadelphia. Moving on to a team and a quarterback more specifically, who got nothing but crap this offseason. That's the Kansas City Chiefs, and that's Patrick Mahomes. The criticism, I never really got an opportunity to touch on it on the show because there are other stuff going on, but the criticism that Patrick Mahomes got over the offseason was absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. You had Tyreek Hill, now a Miami Dolphin, talking about Tua's the most accurate quarterback I've ever played with. Clearly a shot at Patrick Mahomes. You had guys out there, say, who was it? Was it anonymous NFL scout? Which, of course, he's anonymous. He's not going to have, the guts to say his name, to tell us his name after what he said. He said that Patrick Mahomes feel like he's just playing street ball out there, right? He doesn't have, that great of a football awareness. It's like, for somebody who has a bad football awareness, he sure wins a lot of football games, right? He's never not reached the AFC Championship game in his career as a starter. That's pretty good. And Kansas City, shocker, they looked absolutely phenomenal against the Arizona Cardinals. I said that this would be a fireworks show. I said there'd be a lot of points. I took the Chiefs 42-34. The Chiefs ended up scoring 44 and winning by 23 over the Cardinals. Kyler Murray didn't have a very good performance. He had a QBR just barely over average. Mahomes, on the other hand, was simply remarkable, right? 360 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, QBR of 94, and a passer rating of 144. This guy is still the second, if not the first best quarterback in the National Football League. Arm, accuracy, mobility, doesn't turn the ball over. I mean, he along with Josh Allen is everything that and Justin Herbert as well, are everything you could possibly want in a franchise quarterback. Great leadership, coachable, pretty durable, right? Mahomes he's not the kind of athlete that Josh Allen is or that Justin Herbert is, but he is a two-sport athlete. He did play baseball. Okay, so, and some of those arm angles kind of remind you of a shortstop a little bit. That's what he brings to the table. I mean, the fact that, I literally I've read articles this offseason predicting Kansas City to finish last in their division. I'm like, so you're telling me you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and you're going to finish last in your division? I don't think Kansas City is going to win the division because, I got the Broncos going all the way and hoisting the Lombardi Trophy in Arizona, which is where the game was played yesterday, obviously. But this team ain't going nowhere. Okay. Yes, they lost Tyreek Hill. Yes, they traded Tyreek Hill, a trade that I personally think they won because they got 4 first-round picks out of it. And Tyreek Hill is not going to give you the same production with Tua that he gave you with Mahomes. But correct me if I'm wrong, does Mahomes not still have Travis Kelce, the best tight end in football? Does he not still have an excellent offensive line? Now, my man Trey Smith out of Tennessee looks like he's hurt. We'll see when he comes back. But you've got Creed Humphrey as well at center, who's an excellent player. Kansas City found him in the draft last year. You got Orlando Brown as their left tackle. You've got Sky Moore. That kid can play. I love watching Sky Moore. They use Clyde Edwards-Helaire in these nice little red zone packages. Mahomes threw him a little underhanded touchdown pass. It was beautiful to watch. You've got Juju Smith-Schuster, You've got Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I mean, you've got some real playmakers here. Kansas City's not going anywhere. I mean, I cannot wait for Thursday Night Football. Kansas City and the LA Chargers, the way the Chargers looked yesterday, whew. You want to talk about first Thursday night game of the year in Arrowhead Stadium. Chargers won last year at Arrowhead Stadium last September. That place is going to be rocking. You got 2 of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL, 2 great offenses. Chargers have a great defense. I mean, it's going to be phenomenal. But the fact that people actually doubted this guy like he had fallen off a cliff or something because he had one bad second half in the AFC Championship game against the Bengals. Now, all of a sudden, he's not in the level of the great quarterbacks of this league. You can't define an athlete off their worst moment. You can't. If they've shown a pattern of bad moments, okay, that's a different story. But time and time again throughout his career, Mahomes, that is his only bad playoff game. Don't give me the Super Bowl against Tampa, okay? As great as Brady was and the Bucs were, Patrick Mahomes is like Dak Prescott last night. Had no time to throw the football. I mean, he's being pressured every play. I think he actually broke the record for most pressures in a Super Bowl. He had nothing to work with there. But this team isn't going anywhere. They've got an excellent ownership. Clark Hunt, the Hunt family. You got Brett Veach, who's a tremendous general manager, great drafter. You've got Andy Reid, who's one of the greatest offensive coaches of all time. And you've got Patrick Mahomes, one of the greatest quarterback talents that we've ever seen. I mean, people said, oh, Pat Mahomes had a down year. Man, if 37 touchdown passes and over 4,000 yards is a bad year or a down year, give me that any day of the week. He's coming on a mission. He's going to be in the MVP discussion. I've got Josh Allen winning it, but will it shock me if number 15 in Kansas City wins it? Absolutely not. This guy is one of the greatest talents at this position we've ever seen. Kansas City is going to be great this year once again. I think they're going to come up just short of winning another division title against the Denver Broncos. And their early schedule is no cupcake. Again, they got the Chargers, as I mentioned on Thursday. They got at the Colts, who just tied the Texans yesterday, at Tampa Bay. That's going to be, man, what a matchup that's going to be. They got the Raiders, who they've played well against. Buffalo, that's going to be one of the better games of the season. That game is in Kansas City. Okay, you got the Niners, Chargers again. You got the Rams. Remember the last time the Chiefs played the Rams? What was the final score? 54-51, that crazy Monday night game at the Coliseum. Could get another one of those. Who knows? Chiefs play the Bengals in December, and then they play the Broncos twice in 4 weeks with some games baked in against Houston and Vegas to finish the season. Yeah, there's some tough games of the schedule because this is the toughest division in football. But if you have those two, you have Andy Reid, you have Patrick Mahomes, you can win the whole thing. You can go as far as you want to go. Top 3 quarterback, top 3 coach. Seems like a pretty good combination to me, not to mention excellent weapons. My only concern about Kansas City is their defense. Lost Honey Badger in free agency, right? They lost some corners. Secondary isn't great. They still have Chris Jones up front. He's excellent, but the linebacking core isn't great. If Kansas City loses in the playoffs, which I predicted that they would lose to Buffalo in the divisional round, that the Bills would get revenge this go around. I think it'll be the defense that lets them down. But Kansas City can again, they've got a track team. Okay, they can score with anybody. They can score on any defense, doesn't matter. The fact that it was Arizona's defense is why they put up 44. That's why I had Kansas City scoring in the 40s. Patrick Mahomes looked simply phenomenal. I mean, he had 350 yards and 5 touchdowns before the fourth quarter even started. He's remarkable. The fact that people doubted this guy, it's ridiculous. He's as good as they come. Before I get into the Cincinnati Steelers crazy fest, let's go through some of the week 1 action that we had. It must be miserable to be an Atlanta Falcons fan. Like, I genuinely feel bad for Atlanta Falcons fans. That is now how many fourth quarter leads can this team blow? Everybody knows about 28-3. That speaks for itself. But remember that game 2 years ago when they're up 20-0 on the Dallas Cowboys and lost? No team had ever scored 39 points and not turned the football over and still lost the game. Atlanta managed to lose that. They lost that fourth quarter lead to Chicago that year. This year they got a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter over the Saints, and the Saints come back to win it by 1. I've never seen anything like it. Matter of fact, there's a stat. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Here it is. NFL teams leading by 15 points in the fourth quarter over the last 3 seasons. The rest of the NFL, excluding the Atlanta Falcons, when they go into the fourth quarter up 15 points or more, they are 245-2-1 with a winning percentage of 98%. So basically, if you're an NFL team, you got a 15-point lead going into the fourth quarter, you got a 99% chance to win the game. You're going to win more times than not. Atlanta, on the other hand, 5-3, winning percentage of 62%. I mean, it doesn't matter who the coach is, who the quarterback is. Yesterday it was Marcus Mariota. In years past, it was Matt Ryan. In years past, the head coach was Dan Quinn. It doesn't matter. I mean, it is truly remarkable how this team manages to blow lead after lead after lead in the final 15 minutes or overtime if it goes that far. It's crazy, but ugly win for the Saints, but the Saints were kind of my sleeper team this year. I got Jameis winning comeback player of the year and Chris Olave winning rookie of the year. So good start to start 1-0. Bears and 49ers. First of all, I got to tip my cap to Justin Fields. Man's got absolutely nothing to work with. Bad offensive line. His best receiver just left to go to the Rams during the offseason. He's got absolutely nothing to work with. And in a driving rainstorm in Chicago against a loaded 49ers defense, he got it done. He had a couple fourth quarter drives, take the lead, and then put it out of reach. Justin Fields is a remarkable football player. I felt worst for him in the draft because he's going to an organization that hasn't had a franchise quarterback in the Super Bowl era, a team that knows how to build great defenses but cannot put together a good offense to save their life. I'm like, man, this guy, I mean, he's got nothing to work with. Like, that's why I felt bad for him. He's such a remarkable talent. Moving out to the pocket, he can run. He's got a big arm, good, accurate throw of the football. We saw that certainly at Ohio State and in high school before that. Like, man, I hate that he's going to Chicago. But against a much better roster in San Francisco, man, hats off. Justin Fields pulled it off. On the other hand, Trey Lance, first start as the Niners franchise quarterback, not great. Under 50% completion percentage, 164 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, QBR of 43, a passer rating of 50. So, and Trey Lance has sort of this, this weird throwing motion. Can he get that cleaned up? We'll see. But obviously, everybody's talking about Jimmy Garoppolo. Should you bench Trey Lance for Garoppolo? It's 1 game in. He's a young player. He needs to be out in the field more. Now, if he doesn't improve drastically over the next month and a half, yeah, you probably will have to go to Garoppolo. And must I say, San Francisco seemed like an awful good spot for a certain injured quarterback in Dallas, but I'll leave that be. I know George Kittle was out. You have to win that game against Chicago. Chicago's a bad football team. You just made the NFC Championship game and didn't really lose anybody. You have got to win that football game, even if the conditions are as bad as they were. And they were horrible. I mean, you saw the sort of the shot of week 1 was Justin Fields and some of the Bears players, belly sliding in the end zone when water's going everywhere. I mean, that Chicago probably has the worst field in the league. I mean, didn't that preseason game, there was a kicker who had to kick field goals at like a state park because the field conditions were so bad and he had to actually come back to the stadium for the game. I mean, they got to get that cleaned up in Chicago sooner rather than later. Somebody's going to get really hurt. Again, I'll get to Steelers, Bengals in just a second. Eagles looked great over the Lions. That was my upset of the week. I had Detroit beating Philadelphia, although I had Detroit +4, so they covered. But Jalen Hurts was excellent. He had 4 Eagles players score rushing, 4 different Eagles players score a rushing touchdown. A.J. Brown looked great in his first game as a Philadelphia Eagle. Again, Jalen Hurts played well, 243 yards passing, QBR 64, and he also had 90 yards rushing. Miles Sanders had 96 yards rushing. This is what this team is going to be built off of. The running game, play action. They didn't have a very good defensive performance. They almost gave up a big comeback to the Lions. Eagles led, 38-14. Detroit came storming back, almost pulled it off, almost had some serious kneecap damage in Philadelphia, but Eagles came away with the win. Good for them. You had the Dolphins beating the Patriots 20-7. Like I mentioned in my Dak Prescott segment earlier, I cannot, as critical of him as I have been, and I firmly do not believe that Mac Jones is a franchise quarterback. I cannot criticize him this year. Can't. He got injured yesterday, hurt his back. Looks like Belichick's the MRI results. Looks like he's going to be okay, which is a great thing. But to me, Mac Jones and Tua are the same guy. Tua just happens to be a lefty. Not very mobile. Tua throws more interceptions usually than Mac does, but not great arm strength. Coachable, good dudes, but I mean, obviously they both played at the University of Alabama, but not a whole lot of special there. Not anything that's going to be like, whoa, did you see that? You're just not going to see it. Difference is, and why I picked Miami to win convincingly, which they did, Tua has Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki and Raheem Mostert and Cedric Wilson and an improved offensive line and a good defense. Mac Jones has he has Devontae Parker and Nelson Aguilar. And who else? We got Kendrick Bourne and Jacoby Myers. I mean, come on. I can't. I mean, the Patriots' big free agent signing blew everybody away. Got Devontae Parker. He had 1 catch for 9 yards. And you got a deep. Matt Patricia's calling plays. Come on. I almost feel like 7 wins might have been too generous. Okay, the Patriots will take care of the Jets twice, but their late season schedule is brutal. But check it right. It is awful. They are playing like Super Bowl contenders. They're playing Minnesota on Thanksgiving. Obviously, they got Buffalo. I mean, that's a few weeks they go to Lambeau to play the Packers. I mean, their schedule is rough. This is going to be a bad year for the New England Patriots. And Belichick has now dropped to exactly 500 post Tom Brady. Whereas Brady is still winning in Tampa. My man Lamar Jackson playing for his career right now. 24-9 win over the New York Jets. Lamar looked absolutely phenomenal. What should we expect? He's elusive. He avoided some sacks in the game. He had a great deep ball throw to Devin Duvernay. Lamar was fantastic. He's an MVP for a reason. He should get paid for a reason. I'm going to keep beating this table. Ravens, pay Lamar Jackson and give that man what he wants. Okay, don't try and shortchange him. If he wants Kyler Murray money, if he wants Deshaun Watson money, he's a heck of a lot more deserving of that money than Deshaun is. That's putting it mildly. Okay? But the Ravens come away with that win. The Commanders beat the Jaguars 28-22. I was this close, and thank God I didn't pick the Jaguars. I almost did pick them on Friday. I had a bad week 1. Even if I get tonight's game right, I'm 6-8-1. Okay? The one obviously being the tie between the Colts and Texans, which... it's crazy. The Colts are down 20-3, come back in the fourth quarter, tie the game, and it ends up ending in a tie, 20-20. But yeah, the Commanders, Carson Wentz played pretty well. That Dotson kid that they drafted was good. Terry McLaurin, again, one of the more underrated receivers in football. They look good. I mean, the Washington Commanders look good against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence was up and down at times. You had that drop by Travis Etienne in the end zone. You got to clean that stuff up. But again, I do feel like Jacksonville, I said before the season, they're going to double their wins from 3 to 6. And then the games they lose, they're going to be close. It's going to be the typical talented young team losing close games where, you got the youth, new coach. It's like, oh, they're so close, but just not seasoned enough. That's going to happen. It's a building process for Jacksonville, but if they stick with the process, stick with that phenomenal talent at quarterback that they have, and I think Doug Peterson was a good hire, ride this thing out, they'll be fine. My Bryson's Bleak Bets, the new segment I introduced on Friday, Carolina beating the Browns. It almost happened. Okay. Baker Mayfield in his first game against the Browns was miserable for the first 3 quarters, led a big fourth quarter rally, ran for a touchdown. Then he threw a 75-yard touchdown to the guy who didn't want him to come to Carolina. That was Robbie Anderson. Then leads a drive to hit the go-ahead field goal. And Jacoby Brissett drives the Browns. It was a controversial call, obviously, but drives the Browns into field goal range. And the rookie kicker, Cade York, out of LSU. Think LSU could have used him last week against Florida State? Cade York from 58 yards out. I mean, dead right down the middle. And had that thing might have been good from 70 plus. Cade York. Cade York and Evan McPherson, I swear to you, I know McPherson had a bad day yesterday. I'll talk about that in just a second. Cade York reminds me of a young Justin Tucker, right? Cool, calm, collected, hit big kicks in college. He was on that LSU team in 2019 with Joe Burrow that won the national championship. Cade York's not scared of the moment. So for all of Cleveland's issues, they got a kicker. There's no question about that. Giants, Titans, what a game that was. My man John Rivera, Fan Perspective Podcast, shout out. He called it. He said Giants plus 5.5, and not only did they cover, they won outright over Tennessee. Daniel Jones leads that drive. Saquon Barkley had a great night, and he caps it off with the 2-point conversion. And then Ryan Tannehill drives the Titans into field goal range, and the kick is no good. So rough loss for the Titans. Great win for Brian Daboll and his head coaching debut. There was one hashtag that started to trend on Twitter with Giants fans calling him Brian Dayballs instead of Daboll because he went for the 2-point conversion for the lead rather than tying it. It was a gutsy call. So, shouts to Brian Daboll and to the Giants for winning a tough game on the road in Nashville. And obviously I talked about the Chiefs and Cardinals and the Packers and Vikings. Let's see. We got a comment here. John just says, are we live? We are live, Mr. Rivera. We are live. Sorry about your Jets, and I'm even more sorry about your Fighting Irish, man. Looks like their quarterback, I read their quarterback's out for the season, so this is about as bad of a start for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish as you could have. By the way, what a weekend in college football. I know I keep putting off Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, and I swear to you I'm going to get to it. But what a weekend in college football. You had the Bama Texas game, which lived up to the hype and then some. Man, I'm telling you, if Quinn Ewers does not get hurt for Texas, they win that football game. I mean, he started on fire. What was he? 9 for 12, 150 yards. He was excellent. But then the backup comes in, played pretty well. Card, I think was his name, led Texas on a drive to kick the field goal to take the lead. But ice in his veins. Bryce Young, Ice Bryce, maybe we'll call him that. What did he do? He did what he always does. The Heisman Trophy winner leads Bama right smack dab down the middle of the field. Has a great run from his from the Texas 40-yard line. It's capped off by a game-winning field goal. So what a game for Alabama. John is not happy about Notre Dame. It was a rough loss. Notre Dame lost. 8th-ranked Notre Dame lost to unranked Appalachian State, who had a great performance. Marshall. Shout out Matthew McConaughey. Marshall beat Texas A&M in College Station. My University of Tennessee Volunteers went on the road, beat the 17th ranked team in the country, the Pittsburgh Panthers. My man Hendo Cinco, Hendon Hooker, Cedric Tillman did their thing in overtime. Defense made key play after key play after key play. And my Vols, what do you know? We're the 15th ranked team in America, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out Josh Heupel. Shout out Hendon Hooker, Cedric Tillman, whole bunch in Knoxville. Let's take care of Akron this week, and let's go beat Florida next week. Speaking of Florida, brought me great joy to see them lose to Kentucky. Will Levis wasn't great. The game was broken open by a pick six thrown by Anthony Richardson, but great win for Kentucky, and who'd have thought? Kentucky ain't just a basketball school. The Kentucky Wildcats in football are the 9th-ranked team in the country. How many SEC teams are ranked? 8? Obviously got Bama, Georgia. A&M is still ranked despite the loss. You got Arkansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, Florida, Ole Miss. I mean, hey, it's like they say in the SEC, man. It just means more. It's the best. I mean, goes without saying, it's the best conference in sports, in college sports, without a shadow of a doubt. All right, moving on to Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. As Drizzy Drake would say, that game wasn't drunk, as some people said on social media. That game wasn't even high. It was both. I don't even really know how to put that game into proper context. I mean, second Bengals play of the game. Excuse me. Joe Burrow, I'm not sure what he was looking at. He's trying to force the ball to T. Higgins, and one of the best players in the secondary in the NFL, Minkah Fitzpatrick, who got his money this offseason, deservedly so, steps right in front of it, takes it to the house, pick 6 on Joe Burrow's first pass of the year. By the way, Joe Burrow had I know they tried to improve that offensive line in Cincinnati, but you couldn't tell. Joe Burrow sacked 7 times in the Super Bowl against the Rams. Yesterday, sacked 7 more times against the Pittsburgh Steelers. As I've said numerous times, I was dead wrong on Joe Burrow coming out of college. But part of the reason I didn't think he would pan out could be part of the reason that his career may not last as long as we hope. That offensive line, folks, is awful. It is awful. I know Pittsburgh's got a great defensive line, but man, I mean, Lyle Collins is getting abused. They had Alex Kappa that they added from Tampa Bay. Just awful all day long. The worst part of the game, TJ Watt, by the way, is out for a significant amount of time. He tore his pec late in the fourth quarter. They've tested it. He's reportedly getting a second and third opinion. That's when you know he's trying to get a different result than what he initially got. It's a serious injury. He'll be out for a while, so it's a bad loss for the Steelers losing him. But Steelers build that lead. I think they're up, 20-7. Cincinnati comes back. Yeah, that crazy last drive, and on the last play of regulation, Joe Burrow hits Jamar Chase with seemingly no time left, and they put 2 seconds back on the clock. We're thinking, oh my God, Joe Burrow just did it again. That Joe Burrow, great young man, as Ed Orgeron would say. He did it again. Him and Chase on the case, Jamar Chase, they did it again. And a bad snap by the backup holder leaves enough time for Minkah Fitzpatrick to come in and block Evan McPherson's extra point. So we go to overtime. It is a miss kick, fiasco. It's crazy. You had McPherson with another opportunity. It was another bad snap. It was a bad hold by the holder, and McPherson misses the game-winning kick again with 3 minutes left to go in overtime. Steelers get the ball back. They drive down the field. Chris Boswell, he hits the biggest doink I've ever heard. That was more like, actually, it wasn't like a doink. It sounded almost like a clock. Almost like it's like a big clock when it hits the 12 and you hear doom, doom. That's what it sounded like when it hit the left upright. It was miserable. Bengals get the ball back, don't score. They left little too much time for Trubisky and the Steelers offense. Of course, they punted with the clock running. 15 seconds was on the play clock. They could have waited a little longer, and the game would have ended up being a tie, which I hate ties, but you would have hoped for that if you're Cincinnati as opposed to a Steelers win. Trubisky, in what was a pretty off game for him, drove the Steelers down. Chris Boswell at the gun, kicks the game-winning field goal, and the Steelers, in what was the wildest game of the weekend without a doubt, Steelers win that game 23-20. Again, I don't really know how to put this game in proper context. It was crazy. What I do know is that Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, this left a bad taste in their mouth. They got Dallas next week. In Arlington, in Jerry World. They're 7-point road favorites. They're going to have something to prove. They're going against what was already a bad Cowboys team. Now they're led by Cooper Rush. Whew. Long day for the Dallas Cowboys. Long day. Let's move on to tonight. We've got a little revenge game. I should say another revenge game. You have Baker versus the Browns. You had a sort of a mini revenge game, Flacco versus the Ravens. And now, to cap week 1 of the 2022 NFL season, we've got the Denver Broncos taking on the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, a Super Bowl rematch from the 2013 season. Of course, that was Russell Wilson was with the Seahawks. Peyton Manning led the Broncos. And we don't know what happened in that game. 43-8 happened. And the Seattle Seahawks won their first Super Bowl. But it's a new day for the Denver Broncos, and it's also a new day in Seattle. Not for the better, because they lost Russell Wilson, and they also lost Bobby Wagner to the Rams. So it has not been a good offseason for the Seahawks. So, last game of week 1. Here we go. So, you got the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Denver Broncos. Seattle is a 7-point favorite in this game. They're a 6-point favorite in this game on the road. Sorry, I'm all over the place, folks. Denver is a 6-point favorite on the road in Seattle. The line has kind of moved up and down. It's been -6.5. It went all the way up to a touchdown at 7. It's moved all the way down to 6. Thing is, for the Denver Broncos, this is their deepest defense they've had in years. Okay, they've got numerous playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. You got Bradley Chubb. You added Randy Gregory in free agency from the Cowboys. Okay, you have Patrick Surtain, who I think it's safe to say lived up to being a first-round pick last year. I think he's going to make multiple Pro Bowls. Excellent player. You have a great secondary, great linebacking core. Denver's defense, people forget last year, Denver had a top 10 scoring defense in the NFL. The issue was their offense couldn't do anything. Now you add Russell Wilson to that mix with those receivers, with Judy and Sutton. You have a great running game with Melvin Gordon. Okay, you got a great offensive line. Garrett Bowles on that offensive line. Denver's set. Seattle, on the other hand, not so much. Okay, you've got Geno Smith starting at quarterback tonight. Nice player. Obviously, he was a first-round pick in 2013. Did not pan out, obviously, for the Jets. He's kind of bounced around the league a little bit. He's landed in Seattle. He's the man right now for the Seahawks. And you got a bad offensive line. You got DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, but that's about it. You got injured running backs, which seems to be the theme every year for the Seahawks. And the defense just gets worse and worse and worse. The fact that Seattle 8 years ago had one of the greatest defenses ever, the Legion of Boom, to now having one of the worst defenses in football. I mean, that Jamal Adams trade is looking worse and worse and worse every day. Okay, the Seahawks have kind of helped the Jets have some pretty good drafts in recent years because a lot of those picks belong to Seattle. They traded them, though, to get Jamal Adams, who hasn't panned out at all in a Seahawks uniform. But in this game, again, kicks off in about an hour on ESPN. I'm going to be watching the Manning cast on ESPN too, personally. But Seattle's at home. My guess is they'll give Russell Wilson his proper ovation. What he did for that organization, what he did for community, every Tuesday, every off day, visiting the Seattle Children's Hospital. I mean, he's a deserving Man of the Year winner from a few years ago. Russell Wilson is the pinnacle, is the picture of class. As a player, as a man, Seattle's not going to boo him. There is no way. This is not Philadelphia. I'm not even sure Philadelphia would boo him, okay? Seattle's got a great fan base, but I think that they could be pretty disappointed tonight. The emotions, I think, are going to run a little high for Russell Wilson. This is where he started his career. This is where he built a family. This is where he built his brand. This is where he built his game as a quarterback for 10 years. So coming back, game one, against the Seahawks, there's going to be a lot of emotion. So I think Russ will get off to a little bit of a slow start. But when it's all said and done, we're going to be saying after the game, Broncos country. Let's ride. Give me the Denver Broncos covering the spread easily by a final score of 38-17 over the Seattle Seahawks. Again, this is going to be a long year for Seattle and a year for Denver that I think they will win the division with a 12-5 record, and I think that they will go to and win Super Bowl 57, and it all begins tonight in Russell Wilson's old stomping grounds. Denver wins 38-17 and covering the 6-point spread without a doubt. Also, I think it's Joe Buck and Troy Aikman's debut on as the voices of Monday Night Football. Again, best of luck to those guys. I especially love Troy Aikman's analysis in the booth. But I'm rolling with the Mannings. I'm rolling with Peyton and Eli. Peyton and Eli got good guests tonight. They got Saquon Barkley, Joel McHale, and finishing off with my man Shannon Sharp. Can't wait to see that tonight. But that is all the time we have for today's show. Lots to talk about today. We have a lot to talk about Thursday. We're going to talk about tonight's game on Thursday. I'll predict the Chiefs and Chargers on Amazon Prime Thursday Night Football. It's going to be an incredible football game between two teams trying to go win the Super Bowl. So, enjoy the rest of the week. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Helps the channel grow exponentially. Check out Carving It Up Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right where you're watching. Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. Have a great week, everybody. Continue to stay safe out there. God bless you all. Peace out. Let's ride. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.